Welcome to the Daily Insider here on Vegas Insider. I am Kevin Rogers. Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022. We are creeping closer towards the Sweet 16 coming up tomorrow night already. We got 4 games Thursday, 4 games Friday, and then we'll be up to the Elite Eight this weekend. And then after this weekend, we'll know who's going to be in the Final Four going to New Orleans. So got a lot to get to. Kyle Hunter's going to join us in just a moment to talk about that. He's one of the top handicappers at Vegas Insider. Had a great tournament so far. We'll talk about that with him coming up in just a moment. Also, we'll hit on the NBA for tonight. Very busy card, and also a lot of key injuries that we'll tell you about coming up in just a little bit. But before we do that, let's talk college basketball. Let's bring on Kyle Hunter. And Kyle, it's good to see you again. And like I mentioned before, the tournament has treated you well, right? So far, 7-2 in the tournament.
Yeah, 7-2 tournament thus far. Certainly very happy with that. And to be honest, Kevin, one of those losses was San Diego State. San Diego State absolutely choked that game away. I feel like I probably should have been 8-1, but when you're 7-2, you got to be happy with it. And the NIT has been pretty good to me too. I had Vanderbilt last night. Vanderbilt, wow, they should have won that game outright. A 9-point lead with like 5:50 left in the game. Barely hold on for the cover, but we'll take it. Yeah, it's been a fun NCAA tournament thus far, both betting wise and plenty of drama. The NCAA tournament seems to always deliver.
What have you're big on totals. What have you noticed with the totals so far? You handicap them during the season. These teams usually playing each other in conference, and now you're getting teams that aren't familiar with each other trying to adjust the styles and tempos. How have you been able to handicap those totals, and has it been successful for you?
Yeah, in general, I like to look for totals with unders for bigger spread games, over for the closer spread games. We saw in the first round that worked pretty well with the higher seeds, the 1, 2, 3 seeds, a lot of those games going under the total. And then the other thing that you got to handicap quite a bit this time of the year is the fact that this is the first time they've played in these sites. Usually these are neutral sites. When you get to the round of 64, the Sweet 16, the Final Four, etc. That's their first game. And then usually in the second game, if anything, those games are a bit higher because they're used to seeing that venue. So that's one of the ways that I look at this quite a bit too. So we do have new venues here for the Sweet 16, and we'll see how that plays out.
Now let's look at some of the matchups coming up this weekend. And let's begin. This one is really one, Kyle, that I've seen a lot of people that are siding with the underdog here. Arizona and Houston. Arizona's the 1 seed. They slipped past TCU. There was questions about that play at half court before the end of regulation. Should have been a foul on Arizona for TCU to shoot free throws. Nothing was called. Arizona won in overtime. Houston, again, a disrespected team out of the American that it feels like all the metrics are there. But what do you think here with the Wildcats and the Cougars coming up?
Well, I think this is an interesting one because everybody's betting Houston now. I do think if you went back about 2 or 3 weeks, this line probably would have been Arizona minus 3.5 or 4. Houston's getting quite a bit of love at this point. I understand why they're getting love. Having said that, I'm a bit nervous to jump on board and go all in on Houston because I feel like their stock is pretty high right now. And definitely a finance guy as well. And I feel like you're buying high if you're buying Houston. Here, that doesn't mean that they can't win. And I think Sampson's a really good coach. So I guess the question is, was Houston's win over Illinois more about Houston being really good or Illinois being a big disappointment? I think clearly some of both, but Illinois was really bad. I mean, they should have lost to Chattanooga in that first game. So my concern with Arizona, 355th in experience in the country. This is a really, really young team. This is the time of the year where that can kind of get you in trouble. And Houston is a well-coached team. I think Sampson's a very good coach. We probably don't want to see him with his shirt off too often, but he certainly knows what he's doing when he's coaching. Arizona has more talent than Houston, but it's not just about talent. On this total, I think Houston probably tries to slow the game down here. I don't think they want to play a track meet game like Arizona does. Total 145. A bit higher than I would make this total. Having said that, both teams have a big edge on the offensive glass. Which team will have more fans at the game? This one's close to Houston, but Arizona travels really well. Kevin, I would think this would be a really raucous environment. I think this will be a really fun atmosphere for this game. I think my lean in this game is the under, and I don't know what to do on the side here because this is a Houston team that, like I said, is getting a lot of credit right now. They deserve it. Having said that, Arizona is still a number one seed. They played very well the whole course of the season, and now it's only 1.5. So I don't know what to do with the side here.
When you look at the four regions, Kyle, that South region, Houston, Arizona, Michigan, Villanova, I mean, like, that's a great foursome. The one out west almost rivals it coming up on Thursday night with Texas Tech, Duke. We'll talk about it in a second, but Arkansas, Gonzaga is the first game. That's a 4 o'clock local time game in San Francisco. It's a 7 o'clock Eastern game. So you kind of wonder, that's kind of, that messes you up a little bit. But Gonzaga, they snuck past Memphis in the last round. A lot of people thought Memphis would give Gonzaga problems, but also with Arkansas, 2 wins over, excuse the term, mid-majors, not great competition. What's funny, Gonzaga, technically in the mid-major category, but we know Gonzaga is an elite team. But what do you think here with Arkansas now flipped to an underdog against the Zags?
Well, first, I mean, how amazing was Drew Timme in that second half? I mean, just absolutely pulling them across the finish line. I was really, really impressed with what he did there in the second half of that game. Memphis played really well in that game. Penny Hardaway has not been the best coach on a game-to-game basis, but his team did play their very best here at the end of the season. Really high level played in that game. I had the over in that one. That one did cash in. Which team is a tougher matchup for Gonzaga, Memphis or Arkansas? I know, it would be tempting to say, well, it's got to be Arkansas. They're the higher seed. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true here because Memphis has so much talent. That was a different team at the end of the season than what they were early on. Memphis would have been a much higher seed if they were playing like that the whole course of the season. Arkansas 320th in bench minutes. They're going to need their starters to be very good in this one. They don't have that same bench that's going to do a really good job for them like Memphis did. Will their starters stay out of foul trouble? Can Gonzaga get something out of Julian Strawther? He's 0 for 9 from three-point range, supposed to be a sharp shooter. He's not been good at all in this tournament thus far. I would lean Arkansas. I would lean laying the points here with Gonzaga, thinking they got their scare last game. Arkansas has really not been that impressive. I mean, they beat Vermont. Vermont was right in that game all the way. And then New Mexico State, give them credit for New Mexico State playing hard, but you would have thought Arkansas would have had their wake-up call after that first game, and yet they still really struggled. That was just such an ugly game. And I'm going to lean to the under in this game as well. 154.5 is a lot of points, Kevin. This is a Arkansas team that's better on defense than they are on offense. Gonzaga is very good offensively, but this is a neutral court. Weird start time, like you said. I would assume that there'll be fans filing into this game as it's going on.
And also, too, I mean, I know all these teams got to trial around, Kyle, but Gonzaga, located in Spokane, they go to Portland, they go back home. It's not long flight. Go to San Francisco, you're staying on the West Coast basically the whole time. Where Arkansas, a lot of travel for them. So you kind of wonder if that plays a factor or not. And again, the early start time, a little bit different than what you're used to, especially a Thursday 4 o'clock game, not like on a Saturday or Sunday. So that's the first game coming up in San Francisco tomorrow night. The second game, very intriguing. Is this Coach K's final game? We say that every single game because he's going to retire after this. But Texas Tech, top defensive efficiency team in the country. They had a rally past Notre Dame. Red Raiders a short favorite here over the Blue Devils.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game that I felt like we had to talk about because, everybody's going to be talking about this game this week. And for good reason. This is Texas Tech's defense against Duke's offense. Duke fourth in offensive efficiency in the country. Texas Tech first in defense. Texas Tech 46th in offense. Duke 43rd in defense. So we have a defensive team against an offensive team. Duke has not played nearly as tough of a schedule as Texas Tech this season. And to be honest, I would want to take Texas Tech here. I know there's a lot of conspiracy theory people out there, and I'm usually not somebody who subscribes to those theories. I will say, however, though, you have to think that CBS and the NCAA would like to see Coach K continue. I mean, it's a great story for them, and that's why this game is the second game instead of Gonzaga, the number one seed, because they're Duke and it's Coach K. I still lean to Texas Tech, but I don't know if I can play it. The total, Slight lean to the under on this one for me, thinking that Texas Tech's defense is just that good. And Duke, defensively, not a great team, but they do not foul. They're second in defending without fouling. Texas Tech does rely a lot on getting to the free throw line. Their offense really is not very good. Texas Tech turns it over too much. They don't shoot well from three. They really attack the basket, try to get to the free throw line and get offensive rebounds. This is a Duke team that has struggled a bit with defensive rebounding, but they're very good at not fouling. This is a fantastic game. Really looking forward to this game, but I'm not sure I'll have a bet on this game, but this is one we had to talk about. I don't know, Kevin, do you have any thoughts on, whether you'd be worried about taking Texas Tech here based on the Duke, and the theory of Coach K continuing?
Yeah, you know what it is? I think you've gotten to this point, Kyle, that if he gets bounced, he gets bounced. I mean, you don't want to see him lose in the first round of Cal State Fullerton and say, oh, my God, what a terrible ending to his career, because they end up winning this game. And let's assume they play Gonzaga and lose. I mean, we just can't have Duke keep going because of Coach K. So I think at least getting to this point, and like you said, the later start. And again, that's a 7 o'clock start out west. So at 10 o'clock, so you want to get the people also in the stands there. And no disrespect to Gonzaga or Arkansas, but it's still Coach K. And you're getting them in a rare underdog spot here. I do like Texas Tech in this game, actually, Kyle. I think that they you can't ignore the defensive numbers that they've had and also what the Big 12 has done. And I want to ask you this question, just kind of off topic, but on topic. Your thoughts on the conferences. I mean, you're big into the Big 10, and they had a bit of a rough weekend. Wisconsin getting tripped up by Iowa State. But then again, Illinois lost to a really good Houston team. Ohio State lost to a really good Villanova team. Michigan State lost to a 2-seed in Duke. So I don't think there's as much shame in the Big 10 as maybe the SEC, who had 5 teams that lost to double-digit seeds already.
Yeah, I think the SEC looks even worse. Purdue needs to keep winning a little bit for the Big Ten, and Michigan's in a tough battle there with Nova. I mean, Ohio State's not that great of a team. I don't think they played that poorly against Villanova. They got that first win there against Loyola. Really, for Ohio State, that was a decent showing. Wisconsin was the one that really had a poor showing. Davis was a bit banged up, and they shot the ball so poorly. SEC looked very bad, certainly. And then obviously the Mountain West, I mean, they just didn't even win a game. And like I said, San Diego State was the one that really should have won. They choked. The Mountain West is like 18-40 against the spread in their last 58 in the NCAA tournament now. It just continues that team seems, or that conference seems to be kind of hyped up every year. This is the year they're better, and then they get to the NCAA tournament and then blow it again.
All right, let's look at the final matchup here. And Big Ten, Purdue, they got a bunch of free throws against Texas. They held them off. St. Peter's been the story of this tournament so far, and at least in my opinion, I'm not breaking any news here. I'm thinking Shaheen Holloway, once St. Peter's gets eliminated, he's going to go over to Seton Hall and be their head coach after Kevin Willard took the Maryland job. But St. Peter's already beat Kentucky. They beat Murray State. Now they take on Purdue. Would you lay the number with the Boilermakers thinking, all right, St. Peter's, maybe they run out of juice here, or the Peacocks can continue to keep it close? They've covered 9 straight.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really fun game. St. Peter's is definitely the story of the tournament. Holloway is a really good coach. He's been a very good coach now for a while, and it's fun to see them having success. I think he has those kids playing really hard. They really like him a lot. I agree with you. He'll probably be at Seton Hall very soon, where he played in the past. St. Peter's is a fun team. He's going to get that bigger job soon. Now, St. Peter's has shot far better in the NCAA tournament than they did in the regular season. I don't think they can keep that up, to be honest. I mean, this is a team that was pretty bad offensively, that all at once they're making a bunch of shots here in the NCAA tournament. Purdue's not a great defense. And, I would lean to the over in this game because I think Purdue can score. There was a lot of talk about Purdue shooting 46 free throws against Texas. The difference was drastic, but to be honest, Texas was fouling a lot. I mean, they're a really aggressive team that fouls a lot. And then you look at St. Peter's. St. Peter's fouls even more than Texas does throughout the course of the season. They rank bottom 10 in the country at defending without fouling. That is not good against this Purdue team that can draw a lot of fouls. The matchup here in size is a major problem for St. Peter's. St. Peter's pretty regularly plays nobody taller than 6'8" on the court. how's that going to work against Edey and Williams? I think Purdue is going to get points here in this game. Now, the question is, how many does St. Peter's score? That's why I'd rather isolate a team total here. If you can get a team total on Purdue, team total over, I think that's a good look here. I think Jaden Ivey has a good game, and then Williams and Edey go to work here in this one. I'd rather bet Purdue team total over than I would lay the points, but if I were betting the side, I would have to lay the points in this one, yeah.
Kyle Hunter, he has had a fantastic tournament so far. He's 7-2 on Vegas Insider. What was your best win so far, or kind of the never in doubt win that you had that you really nailed the game?
Oh, shoot. Best one that was never in doubt. I really liked some of those unders that I took with the higher seeds. I had the Duke and Fullerton under, which they actually scored quite a bit at the end of that game, but it still stayed under. Had the Baylor under with Norfolk State, which stayed under. You kind of put me on the spot. I can't remember all the games right now, but 7-2, it's been nice. And also the smaller smaller tournaments have done well as well. And I'm certainly happy to win ones like that also. So it's been a good run here at the end of the season. Overall, a good season in college basketball. Nothing like the college football where it was 53-27, but certainly up like 15 or 16 units here in the college basketball season. And I won't complain about that.
I'll tell you, the NIT, Kyle, that we're not going to break down the matches. There's 2 left before we get down to the Final Four of the NIT. But I feel like that's a forgotten tournament, and there's a lot of good betting opportunities in that. The CBI is a little tough because that's all neutral site now. They're in Daytona, and they're playing the championship tonight. But I feel like the NIT kind of went under the radar, and there were some good opportunities there. Like you mentioned, you had Vanderbilt, who was in control of that game against Xavier, and they ended up losing but still covered the 2.5. But I just think that the NIT, people kind of forgot about, not talking about it, but there were some good chances there to get some winners.
I think there's some great chances there because you try to figure out who has the better motivation. I've gone against Xavier twice in the NIT with Cleveland State in the first game plus the points. That was a good play. And then with Vanderbilt last night, which, they really should have won. Scruggs out for Xavier too. That's something to keep an eye on for next week, because if he continues to be out, he's their best player. So definitely keep an eye on that. But I think, bettors should not forget about those smaller tournaments because there can be some big value there.
Well, I will tell you this before I let you go, and I'm not going to say one of the never in doubt winners, but the one I really liked from the first weekend, I liked your Buckeyes. I really did, because I thought what happened last year after the Oral Roberts loss, that everyone kind of forgot about them. They lost to Nebraska and Maryland towards the end of the season, and everyone pumps up Loyola Chicago because they made the Final Four a few years ago. And again, their coach went to Oklahoma. They have a new Denzel Valentine's brother is the coach of Loyola now, and he did a really good job with them. I just figured Ohio State as a pick'em, they got to get that one, and they did, and they played very well, and they shut down Loyola's offense. I just thought that was one that people, I don't know why everyone jumped on Loyola.
Yeah, it was definitely a good play. And Ohio State, in the press clippings, they talked a lot about how much it motivated them that everybody was picking Loyola Chicago, right? So Ohio State has all these talented players. Young comes back. They get healthier with Zed Key back as well, and then they take care of Loyola in a game that was really an ugly game, but it was certainly a great cover. Kevin, I think my best play so far was probably actually Bryant and Wright State over in that first matchup. There's been so many games since then that one kind of was out of my mind, but I was just kind of looking back through my bets. The over in that game, I mean, Bryant just plays so ridiculously fast, then Wright State and them go way over. But yeah, I mean, I think there's been a lot of great action so far. I think the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 will be great too. Yeah,
and a lot of people forgot too with that Wright State game that Wright State's in Dayton, and they played, in a sense, a home game. They didn't play at their arena; they played at Dayton's arena, but that was almost like a home game for them. And Wright State, who had a terrible start to the season, they picked it up in Horizon, and then they ended up finishing fourth, and then they won the tournament. So people kind of looked at Bryant as they have Peter Kiss, leading scorer, and everyone forgot about Wright State, but Wright State was still a pretty decent team. So that was a good win by them and a good call on that over. That was like never in doubt over. So, Kyle, we appreciate it. As always, thank you. And we'll catch up soon before the college basketball season ends.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right. There is Kyle Hunter, who you can check out his picks on Vegas Insider. College basketball, college football. He had an amazing season in college football last year, but also he's a very good college basketball handicapper as well. Let's take a quick look at some of the NBA for tonight. A very loaded card in the NBA. And let's begin in Charlotte between the Knicks and the Hornets. And the Knicks lost last night at home to the Hawks. Julius Randle didn't play in that game for New York. He's questionable tonight. And the Hornets laying a bunch here. Knicks back-to-back home losses to the Hawks and the Jazz. So they're trying to get on track. The Knicks did cover all 6 games, or the previous 6 games in their road trip, in their last road trip. So keep an eye out on that. And Charlotte now, they have won 5 straight, so they're coming back to life. They are 2 games above 500 now, but Charlotte, they rallied past New Orleans a few nights ago. They did not cover, but at least the Hornets playing a little bit better. But got to keep an eye on Julius Randle's status for this evening. The Hawks and the Pistons, they just played in Detroit. What was it? In the last 10 days or so? 2 weeks ago, 113-110 win by the Pistons in overtime. That game easily stayed under the 228.5. This one at 227.5. Hawks with no rest tonight. And Detroit off 3 straight overs, off a really head-scratching loss to Portland. This Portland team that's totally beat up, 119-115 back on Sunday. And the Pistons were on a really good ATS run, and we'll see if they can now bounce back. Detroit actually 0-2 ATS their last 2 home games. They've done a lot better on the road recently. But the Hawks and the Pistons, they meet up tonight. So far, the home team has won the first 2 meetings. Hawks by 18 and the Pistons by 3 in overtime. The Kings and the Pacers in Indiana. Pacers laying 6. No Domantas Sabonis reunion tonight. He's out for a while for the Kings, knee injury. De'Aaron Fox is doubtful now with a hand injury for Sacramento. Meanwhile, on the Indiana side, this is the first time that Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, those guys see the Kings since the Kings traded them to Indiana at the deadline for Sabonis. But Indiana went into Sunday's game against Portland, in which they were 1-11 their previous 12 games off a win. They had beaten Houston the game before. So they beat Portland. So a rare back-to-back win situation for the Pacers. They did beat Sacramento on the road earlier this year in a 2-point victory, 3-point victory, 94-91. Game easily stayed under the total of 224.5. Now it's a total of 235.5. Kings off a rough homestand. They beat Chicago at the beginning, but then lost to Milwaukee, Boston, Phoenix, and they led Phoenix, and Suns tied it, won in overtime. The Kings 3 straight overs, and Sacramento playing 3 teams that could be the NBA Finals in their last 3 games. The Jazz and the Celtics, that's a really good matchup at TD Garden tonight. Jazz at 45-27, Celtics 45-28, and Utah off that 8-point loss at Brooklyn 2 nights ago. That snapped a 3-game winning streak for the Jazz. And Utah right now on a 7-2-1 under run the last 10 games. Boston's been absolutely on fire. They've won 9 of 10. 3 straight overs. Back at home, though, after a 4-0 road trip, Golden State, Sacramento, Denver, Oklahoma City. Won all 4, didn't cover against the Thunder, laying 13. But Boston playing the best basketball of anybody right now in the league. And the Jazz outlasted the Celtics 137-130 back in early December in Salt Lake, 209.5 total. Now it's up to 217.5, and we'll see if they have another shootout there. The Nets and the Grizzlies from Memphis. Ja Morant not playing tonight, not expected to play for the Nets. Kyrie will play for the Grizzlies, rather. Excuse me. Kyrie will play for the Nets, but Ja Morant, though, he will be out tonight. And the Grizzlies, they have won 5 of 6. They just blew out Houston a few nights ago. And Brooklyn, they are back playing very well. 6 of 7 they've won. They're 38-34, so Brooklyn in a good spot. Just depends on if they'll be in the play-in tournament or if they'll get in that top 6. Memphis seeking their 50th win on the season. Memphis did win at Brooklyn 118-104 back in early January, 6.5-point underdogs. Ja Morant had 36 in that game for Memphis. Kevin Durant had 26 for the Nets, and James Harden had 19 for Brooklyn, but obviously Harden's not going to play anymore for them. The Warriors and the Heat tonight in Miami, and Steph Curry, again, he's sidelined for Golden State for the rest of the regular season. They lost in Orlando last night. 94-90. It's 3 straight losses for the Warriors, 3 straight unders, 3 straight losses a favorite. But the last 3 times they've been listed as an underdog, they've covered. So that's something that Golden State has in their pocket. The Heat, they've dropped 4 in a row from an ATS standpoint. They lost outright at Philadelphia as 8-point favorites, 113-106. Back on Monday, James Harden and Joel Embiid did not play in that game. And the Heat right now, they have a couple question marks as far as injuries go. Jimmy Butler, he's listed as questionable with an ankle injury. And the Heat laying 6.5 here against the Warriors. The Suns and the Timberwolves in Minnesota. And this line has kind of flipped a bit. Minnesota laying 1.5. Let's just see if it's still there on the last check. It's had a pick 'em some places. Suns laying 1. Wolves were laying 1.5 at BetMGM. So a lot of movement there. I mean, it's going to end up being in that range anyway. But Phoenix, though, they've won 5 straight, and the Suns trying to lock up that number 1 seed. Obviously, with the way Golden State has dropped off, and Memphis a little far behind. Phoenix is going to have that number 1 seed, 58-14. Minnesota, 42-31. Impressive job by the Timberwolves. And they had their 4-game winning streak snapped at Dallas back on Monday, 110-108 defeat to the Mavericks. But the Timberwolves have been pretty good at target center, 24-12 so far on the season at home. And also the Timberwolves playing with some double revenge here. They've lost twice to Phoenix so far this season. A game that will not be talked about by many, but still on the board, the Magic and the Thunder in Oklahoma City. And these teams just met a few days ago on Sunday in Orlando. And the Magic beat the Thunder 90-85. They did not cover as 8.5-point favorites. And now the Magic favored again on the road, which you don't see that often. But also Shai Gilgeous-Alexander did not play in that game for the Thunder. So that's obviously why Orlando was laying so much. But the Magic now, with no rest, hitting the road, they've covered 4 in a row, all is very heavy underdog. Or I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing here. Excuse me. Let me retract that statement. Oklahoma City has covered 4 in a row, all as a heavy underdog, getting 13 to Boston, 8.5 to Orlando, 14.5 to Miami, 11.5 to San Antonio. But Oklahoma City, though, they obviously are not playing well at the moment. 10 consecutive losses. Last time they won was at Denver as 15.5-point dogs back on March 2nd. So far in March, the Thunder have 1 win, while Orlando off back-to-back wins, which you don't see that often with them. And now they're laying points once again, hitting the road. The Magic, they are 3-12 straight up this season with no rest. 3 more games to look at. The Rockets and the Mavs in Dallas. Luka Doncic, he is out tonight for the Mavericks. Ankle injury. Dallas has beaten Houston 3 times already this season. Rockets off of a 115-97 win over Washington back on Monday. That was a game they were trailing big and came back. And 3 straight unders for the Rockets. Meanwhile, Dallas snapping that 2-game skid by beating Minnesota on Monday. And the Mavericks, their last few games as they've been kind of up and down as a favorite, but Dallas still strong home record at 24-12, going for the 4-game season sweep of Houston. The 76ers and the Lakers out at Crypto.com Arena, almost slipped up there. Philadelphia 44-27, expecting beating Harden to play tonight. They did not play in the Heat loss the other night, but they still won. Or let me rephrase that. I said the Heat lost. They were expected to lose to the Heat, but they won as an underdog, getting 8 points. So excuse me on that one. Phillies won 3 of 4, and now they head out west for 3 games. Lakers, Clippers, and Suns for Philadelphia. Lakers, tough spot here. Back at home after going 2-2 on the road trip. LeBron went to Cleveland, beat the Cavs. They go back on the road again after this. New Orleans, Dallas, and Utah to wrap up March. So the Lakers, now taking on Philadelphia for a second time this season. Lost 105-87 in Philly back in late January. But in that game, LeBron did not play. Anthony Davis at 31 in the loss for the Lakers. He's obviously not playing tonight. So this time around, LeBron will face Philadelphia and the Lakers, a healthy home underdog. And finally, the Spurs and the Blazers in Portland. San Antonio laying 9.5 on the road. When's the last time you saw that one? And San Antonio at 28-44. Portland at 27-44. Blazers off a rare win at Detroit, 119-115, back on Monday to wrap up their road trip, which they started 0-4. And the Blazers only 2 wins in their last 10 games. It's not been a good showing for them, but obviously no Damian Lillard. McCollum's in New Orleans. Simons is hurt. But Portland, look, they'll put up some points. San Antonio's won 2 of 3. They just won at Golden State the other night. But the Spurs, though, laying a bunch here. Godspeed if you take the Spurs tonight to cover that number against the Portland Trailblazers. Also, this evening, we talked about with Kyle Hunter. The NIT does continue. Wake Forest and Texas A&M in College Station. A&M laying 2.5. BYU hosting Washington State. Washington State took care of SMU. BYU just knocked off Northern Iowa. Cougars laying 2. The CBI championship in Daytona. UNC Wilmington and Middle Tennessee State, 2 of the top ATS teams in the country. UNC Wilmington just kept cashing as an underdog this year. Middle Tennessee State rallied past Abilene Christian last night. So Middle Tennessee State laying 4.5 against UNC Wilmington. The Basketball Classic continues. So you've been following that one. Youngstown State and Fresno State. Fresno laying 13 in that contest. That's out west. And the NHL, 4 games tonight, 3 heavy favorites. And the only not heavy favorite, Anaheim, laying 120-125 against the Chicago Blackhawks. So my thanks to Kyle Hunter for joining me today on the Daily Insider. Tomorrow, Stephanie Odie will come back and she will join me to talk about the Sweet 16 and a lot of other things going on as far as, look, college basketball is coming towards a close very, very soon. And by the end of the weekend, we'll have 4 teams remaining for the NCAA tournament and the Final Four in New Orleans. Again, my thanks to Kyle Hunter for joining us. Check him out at Kyle Hunter Picks on Twitter. I am Kevin Rogers. Thanks a lot for watching. And as always,